Hello, everyone. I'm Dominique Johnson-Lindsay, and I want to welcome you to the Active Listener podcast by Lightspeed. As a lifelong learner and the daughter of a Navy veteran who became an elementary school teacher, education and service are in my DNA. This foundation, paired with my love of technology, led me to these conversations with remarkable minds shaping the K-12 landscape. Join us as we amplify these vital voices and explore how active listening remains foundational to educational excellence. Whether you're an educator, administrator, or someone passionate about the future of education, there's something here for you to learn. Oh my goodness. Thank you everyone for joining another episode of the Active Listener podcast. I'm here with Katie Kollasch. She is the Chief Entrepreneur and Change Agent for the Venture Academy of Leadership and Entrepreneurship in Parker, Colorado. So happy to have you joining us. So before we dive into all the good things I want to talk about, please just let us know a little bit more about who you are.
Yes. Oh my gosh, Dominique, it is such an honor to have been asked to participate with you. And I'm so excited to share a little bit about Venture Academy of Leadership and Entrepreneurship. We affectionately call ourselves VAIL. I am a career educator. This is actually my 26th year in education. I started as a teacher in England and spent some time teaching in Wales, then moved to North Carolina, and I've been in Colorado since 2004. And it's been the most incredible career. I've met some amazing people, and it's culminated in the awesome experience of opening a school.
Oh my goodness. So just in that bit alone, we got so much to talk about. So first thing, moving from England to North Carolina, tell me a little bit about that, because I am from the South, if nobody can tell. So I'm from Alabama. And I always think like we are the last place on everyone's list to like kind of come to. So.
Oh my goodness. Well, first of all, I had an incredible time there. I actually joined a company called the Visiting International Faculty Program that focused at the time on bringing educators from all over the world to states in America. They were operating in 9 different states with the desire to add some cultural influence to the education system in these states. And so I actually was a teacher of food and textile technology. My degree is in consumer science, food and textile product development. And so I was teaching food and textile science, which isn't really a well-known area of teaching. And so I had limited options as to where I would be able to teach. And so there was a school in North Carolina that needed a middle school teacher at the time to teach this. And then that kind of grew into me realizing that I just loved America. I actually returned to my country of residence for a year and then moved to Colorado, where there was another opportunity to teach, this time at a high school. And I've been here ever since. So it was the VIF program that really was the springboard for my international educational opportunity.
Gotcha. That's so exciting. And I love that you even went back for a little while and was like, no, I want to come back. I love that. So with your background, so obviously taught high school, you had some other leadership roles, and then started a school. Talk to me about what was the process like of saying, I can do this and I want to do this, and even connected with Leanne, who I know operates as the kind of principal, I guess. I know she has a good title too. It's like chief learner and something. So
yes, you're right. Yes, nice work. I think Leanne and I have been in the education system each for over 2 decades. And we really felt that there was kind of one size fits all as the mentality. And we recognize that one size doesn't fit all. In fact, when we're navigating, providing an educational experience to arguably the most precious commodity in the world, children, they really do need something very intentional. And we were really recognizing that if we were to prepare students not only for the future that currently exists, which is what we call Promise One, but also the future that we can't predict, then we would have to arm them with some really specific skills, which we would teach or they would learn through experiencing it for themselves. So both of us really kind of arrived at the same place at the same time. I had been a dean and an assistant principal and a principal, and had tried to kind of change some systems, but realized that actually changing the current system in a traditional setting was probably not the way to go. And to be able to have a blank slate and to create a model that we could then replicate in the future really was the way to go. So Leanne actually pitched to our school district a different way of navigating the high school experience. We've both been in the district for a long time, so there was some real trust built there. And the district accepted her kind of pitch. And then almost a year later, she and I started chatting, and we realized that we had the same vision. We'd had experiences that we could bring to the table that together would create magic. And so we've been working together now for 3 years, and we opened VAIL. We had the ribbon cutting 2 years ago. It's been the most exciting experience. And we've done it so intentionally, Dominique. Every single thing that you will see or hear or read about in terms of VAIL is absolutely so intentional. And we can absolutely give you the story and the research and the intentionality behind every tiny decision.
I love it. I love it. And I kind of remember some of that from just initially meeting you and talking through some of the things. So I know one of the things that I thought was really great, and it kind of reminded me of just Lightspeed and how we kind of operate. And it was like those kind of core values, or this like VAIL, I think you all call it maybe like the VAIL mindset of like having empathy and integrity. So talk to me about what all those values are, because I'm sure I'm missing some, and kind of how you weave that through the students who ultimately apply and come to the school. So,
yeah. And it is really the golden thread. So we recognize that in order for students to be prepared for the future, one of the greatest assets that they'll have is something that we are familiar with as being called soft skills. Well, here at VAIL, and I'm sure many people would argue, they are crucial, hard skills. And we have coined them as skills that embrace the entrepreneurial mindset. And so when students come to VAIL, we are not necessarily creating future entrepreneurs. We are creating students who will be able to navigate the future with an entrepreneurial mindset. And we've split that into the head and the heart. And so we would recognize that many people are unable to see a problem as an opportunity because they get so caught up in the minutia of the issue and all of the logistics. And those are really important. But to see a problem as a way forward, and to be able to take those skills and transition and switch it to, well, how can we get through this, knowing that we'll learn from the experience of the problems that we've encountered, that's a huge skill. So seeing a problem as an opportunity, having a bias toward action, those are kind of the head. And then the heart is really knowing that inclusivity and recognizing the heart of someone else, the art of belonging, the ability to empathize with someone else, the ability to know your user, the use of design thinking, which is a mixture again of the head and the heart. So really using that entrepreneurial mindset to lead us forward into the future is at the heart of VAIL, and it is woven into every single aspect. We offer a traditional transcript. So that's Promise One, which is we're preparing students for the future, for the time that currently exists right now. And then also preparing them for the future. So they get a traditional transcript and they follow all of the core subject areas, but the way that we teach through design thinking and design sprints, helping students to learn through their learning style and then demonstrate their learning through their multiple intelligence. All of those things are very intentional.
I love it. And they sound so exciting and just different overall, which is, I know, the obvious objective. I think what's coming up for me though is even in schools that have kind of these like maybe like open classrooms or other things, there's always a little bit of, I guess, a challenge in getting people to understand how this works in in the new system, because people are used to very much traditional classrooms, like getting the students to understand and the teachers to understand. So talk to me about what kind of the change management, I guess, looks like of getting the staff as well as the students acclimated to how you all do things at VAIL.
Yes, you're so right. Change management is really the key to what we've done, and change is hard. And what we're really doing is kind of disrupting the traditional approach to high school education. So we are still a 4-year high school. We're not a program that you can dip into and dip out of. We are a 4-year commitment. And so we have recognized through deep research, through creating a challenge network of families, of community members, of students, as we were designing, through looking at lots of research on the dropout rate of colleges right now, of how successful colleges are enticing students to go into higher education. We're in Colorado, so looking specifically at the Colorado talent pipeline. What are future employers looking for? We did our research. So we were able to pitch this idea, not as kind of a pipe dream that Leanne and I had come up with because we were disillusioned with the current education system. The current education system meets the needs of many students, and we wanted a value added. We wanted to elevate what was already available and recognize that we had to do that really with a lot of intention and there was no harm that we were going to do. We were providing the baseline education system, and then we were elevating it. So every student was going to win in some way. But what we have discovered over the past 2 years, they are getting so much more than what we could possibly have imagined. So when we onboard students, we actually go through a pre-enrollment dialogue. We're still a public school, so anyone can apply, but we only take 40 students per grade level. And when we onboard them in that pre-enrollment dialogue, we look at their brain hemisphere preference, we look at their learning style and their multiple intelligence. We have a long qualitative conversation with their family too, because this is a commitment for those 4 years. And students come to us with lots of different stories. Everyone has a story. And so sometimes they have frustrated with school. They're looking for more than a traditional school could offer them. Sometimes they really want to focus on building those entrepreneurial skills. And they also want to be an athlete, which they can be at their home high school as well. And really, the biggest pull is the fact that they get to apply their learning immediately, because students are out in industry every Friday. So we have some amazing industry partners, almost 100 now. And they are very invested in working with our students over time, because the return on their investment while they are still at high school, nurturing all the skills that they want them to have as graduates, exponential.
I love that. That is so exciting. And again, just so different from what's currently offered. And it makes me think about, this ideal of what employers are looking for. I think one of the main things that you all are demonstrating is kind of this like curiosity for what is possible. Not that you all know the answer to, this is the right way. So my question is, what do you hope that other schools that are still going to be traditional, because like you said, current schools do serve a purpose, but what do you hope that you can inspire in traditional schools to kind of help them push themselves a little bit further and ultimately deliver better outcomes to students?
Yes, that's such a great question. Curiosity is just one of the top skills that our students who come to us naturally have. They have an innovative way of looking at things. They have a growth mindset, and they have an infinite mindset. They ask why all the time. And so my encouragement, and there are so many educators out in the world of education now who do this naturally, but it is really to foster that curiosity. And sometimes in a traditional setting, that's our bell, a non-traditional bell. Sometimes in a traditional setting, we are bound by schedules and time and the inability to go off track. And so here at VAIL, we've actually curated a schedule where students are involved in instruction with no off periods for 4 days of that week. And so they have 90-minute labs. We call them labs. And we encourage them to make mistakes, to have the mindset of a scientist, and to be curious, to push boundaries, to ask why. And then if there's an inspiring question, a how might we statement that aligns with our design thinking. If someone asks, well, how might we do this differently? Or how might we get into the mindset of the user if we're trying to solve a problem? We can dive deeply into trying to solve a problem in a different way, as opposed to just learning the content with a finite period of time in order to get to the summative assessment. So I think that fostering the curiosity, having the opportunity to engage students and then immediately apply. And it's that application part that is the hook that really encourages a student to be inspired and want to learn more, to go home and want to research and do more. And so we actually have limited the amount of homework here because our students are so inspired to participate in extracurricular activities and to do their own research and to fulfill commitments to their internship mentors in other employment opportunities. So really, to all the more traditional educators or educators in a more traditional setting, I know that they are inspiring curiosity, and the key part is to keep it relevant and apply it immediately. Make it 3 or 4 dimensional.
I love it. I love it. And I think that's a good, way to sum up, like, what can you do? Because we know there are so many limits to the traditional model. You talk about only having 40 students per, level, that doesn't exist in the traditional model, right?
No, there's so many barriers. It's the size of the schools. It's managing people. And so yeah, I did that for 23 years. And it works for so many students. But we would argue that actually a slightly different model with a more personalized, individualized approach is possible. It's going to take some real disruption, but there are some leaders out there who I know would be so receptive to this, because the outcomes are very different when we think about what we need in the future to navigate the huge tech industry and the way that our whole country, our globe is going. It's going to take some students with very different skill sets and mindsets, and it's our responsibility to prepare them.
I love it. And you're segueing straight into what I want to talk about, which is the technology side of things. So obviously, if you have an amazing school like this where you're working on all the soft skills, I know there's a hard skill component that has to involve technology. So talk to me a little bit about kind of how you all selected the technologies that you use in the school, and ultimately just what is the VAIL's kind of viewpoint on tech as a whole.
Yes. I mean, tech is, it's not just the future, it's now. So we had to prepare our students to be able to navigate it, but navigate it responsibly. So every student, actually, I would say that every student in our building, that isn't the same for every community, but every student in our building does have their own cell phone. Now, sometimes families would elect to not allow their students to bring it to school, and that's the family's decision. But many of our students do have access to it when they're in the building. And so helping them recognize responsible use and the challenge of the potential addiction that tech companies have really kind of fostered in our students. And so recognizing when a cell phone is a great research tool, when it's an asset, and when it is not appropriate to use it in the environment, the school environment, because it's actually a distraction or a disruption to learning. And our students are learning that every day. And we have really very vulnerable conversations with them as well, because we as adults are learning it too. And so to have something done to students in a punitive way is unhelpful. Here at VAIL, we try not to do things to, for, or without a student, but we do it with them. So we're presenting the research on cell phone use too, and the fact that it's an amazing tool and it helps us to access the globe, but it can be a disruption to us if we become addicted to it. So cell phones is kind of one conversation. And then the use of Chromebooks. Everyone does have access to technology, which has been incredibly helpful. And I'm so grateful to our district for making that possible. And then also communication technology. So we decided right at the beginning of building VAIL and refining the building that we're in to have light speed technology here, which has been such a game changer for us. Certainly for our students who are in the deaf and hard of hearing category, it's made learning accessible to them wherever they are in the labs. We no longer in their 504 have to talk about having preferential seating, because typically they would need to be near the facilitator, which means the facilitator had to stay in one spot in their lab. Now the facilitator can move around the lab. They have far more flexibility, and the student has flexibility and voice and choice too in where they're sitting and what they're doing. It also means that when we have large community meetings with over 100 people, everyone can hear what we're saying. And so the Lightspeed technology has just revolutionized our building, and everybody who comes to our building is so grateful for it. It means that we're not straining our voices, everyone gets to hear, and it just makes our education accessible for all.
I love that. And I love that you speak about it that way, especially because it's hardware. And so hardware is often the forgot about part of technology. You know, we talk a lot about AI or, you know, smart boards sometimes, which I mean are kind of hardware, but you know, to think about this listening and hearing component, knowing that hearing is also a part of the like heart part, it's part of the soft skills. To be heard is one of the greatest things that, you know, someone can offer somebody else. So I just love how that is kind of built out through the school as well, because again, it's just something that's often forgotten.
Yes. And it's so easy. We literally just have a microphone around our neck. It's just like a little push on, push off button. Our guests, we have frequent guests. We have a program on a Thursday morning called Spark, sharing perspective and real world knowledge. We have industry partners and guests come in to, again, make the application of learning immediately relevant. So students can see, when I am learning this with my facilitator in my lab, this is how it applies to the real world. This is how someone else is using it right now. And so all of our guests wear the Lightspeed technology around their neck, and it's so easy, and they love it. So it's great.
I love it. I love it. That is so good to hear.
Funny thing happened the other day. One of our guests was wearing it, and she left the building and continued to just believe that she was wearing a necklace for the rest of the day. And then her husband, when she went home, said, "Oh, what are you wearing there?" She realized that she had been wearing the microphone the whole day in all of her meetings. No one mentioned it because it's so cute.
That is hilarious. And so my mom, she is a first grade teacher. She has a system as well. And I often find it on our kitchen table or in the car. So that is hilarious.
Yes, it happens to all of us.
I kind of want to talk about something too. You are a mom. So I have a little one. I have a 2-year-old. So I'm not quite to school age, but that gives me kind of like a good thought. And that is your perspective on education is different because you are in the school every day. You're in a school every day. Talk to me about how you kind of view that from the parent side as you see your kids in school.
Yes. So oh my gosh, I'm so lucky. I have a 5-year-old and a nearly 9-year-old. They are curious learners anyway. I think we fostered that as a family. What I would really encourage all families to do is to recognize that there are many different options out there for schools, and to find a school that aligns with the family values. And then to lean into it and support the school whenever possible, to be a part of it. Traditionally, families are not always a big part of the high school experience. We are expecting our students to have some more independence, to try things by themselves. And so parents are just a little bit more hands off. They might go to their games or their productions and celebrate them. Maybe parent-teacher conferences, but otherwise, you know, the student is kind of taking responsibility. We at VAIL have realized that we are a big team. I think there's an old adage, it takes a village, but it really does. And so when you have everybody working together, we're all communicating. So communication is critical. We are involving the families. They actually are reading the same books. We're having book clubs. We have a family challenge network. I want for my children what we have created at VAIL, and I want to be a part of that. And then I also, now I've chosen a school for have trust that the school will help foster that curiosity, will recognize them as individuals, will help to expose them to not only the core subjects, but also the electives. I feel like the electives are so important, sometimes where students thrive more than the core subjects. And then they'll honor the way that my students learn, how they receive information, how they share their brilliance. It's a lot. It is a lot for a school, but it's totally possible when you find school leaders that are so driven to elevate that school experience. Everyone wins.
For me, that's so interesting to kind of conceptualize, because I think we go back to the ideal of there are these foundational values. There are things that just they come up time and time again. So I think if we align on the values, then we are pretty good to make any kind of decisions, whether that's in school or work or whatever. So I love the way you kind of explained all of that.
Obviously, I have a personal bias, but I just feel like education is the key to life. And if we don't inspire children right from the word go, if we don't help them to become literate so they can consume information, if we don't help them to understand bias, excuse me, so they can discern information, if we don't help them to develop independence so they can make decisions for themselves, then they won't want to continue learning. And yet the world is moving so fast, Dominique. Change is happening at such an exponential level. It sounds so trite when I say it because everybody is saying it, but it's real. The world is moving so fast. And so we have a responsibility to be able to understand what the future holds and to continue learning and to iterate and to change with the world. And so if we can't read about what's happening and make decisions for ourselves and see our role in the future, then it's going to be a really bleak time for us. And so we're really sowing the seed to help students feel empowered, to help them recognize the gifts that they have so that they can really go into the world and be change agents for the future.
I love it. I love it. And I love that we are empowering all of them to be change agents. I love y'all saying that. I think that's just like a unique way to look at it because, people always say like, go forth into the world and do, but we want you to do more than do. We want you to create change. So
and everyone has a superpower. However we arrive at the table at school, we all have superpowers. We might learn differently. We might share information differently. We might communicate differently. We might sit at the table for a while and process information slower than someone else. That every single part of that is so brilliant, and the world needs each and every student in the way they show up. So we've got to be prepared for that.
Couple more questions. One is, we've talked a lot about the future. So I want to hear from you. Any predictions on whether it's VAIL or just K-12 as a whole, as far as predictions on what's next or what's exciting that's coming up?
In order to prepare students for the world that is dominated by artificial intelligence, by exponential change, by technological innovation, we need to be ready. And so in order to do that, we need to backward plan. And that means that further education and higher education need to iterate. That means that high school or secondary school needs to iterate. That means that middle school needs to iterate. That means that elementaries, primaries, infants, juniors need to iterate. And so collectively, we are responsible for doing something different. There are certainly elements of historical education that we can take, keep, and learn from. And then we need to look at the outcomes that we have today. And we need to continue to make sure that we're changing. And we can't do that in isolation, Dominique. I feel that communication channels between higher ed and high schools and middle schools and higher ed and elementary. We need to look at the beginning and the end and the trajectory in between. And we need to be planning together. We just had a post-secondary planning evening at our school last week, and to have potential employers of students and tech ed and facilities and organizations working with us and listening to us and planning for us and pitching how they are innovating was just the conversation that needs to be happening. We all need to be at the table to do something different.
Okay, so my absolute last question is something that I just found was interesting when I talked to you, and even you kind of mentioned it today, and that is this like literacy emphasis. So when I met you, you talked about a couple of different books that you read, and so I'm just always curious as a reader myself. What books do you think have been most impactful to you, as far as, just the way you think or how you even approach K-12?
I'll talk about it through the lens of VAIL, if that's okay. As we've been really intentional with the books that we have used. And we really based our culture on Brené Brown's Dare to Lead. She talks about the value of vulnerability. She talks about leaning into trust with her acronym BRAVING. And she talks about being in the arena and making sure that you are really coming to the table with an open heart, but a strategic head. And to be a daring leader means showing up, having the conversation, having the crucial conversation, and being prepared to do things a little differently. And so with all of those elements, that's really how VAIL based our culture, which is the very foundation of any great organization, is to make sure that you have a solid culture. And we actually onboarded Marzano high reliability scores to make sure that level 1, a safe, secure, and collaborative culture and school was at the heart of what we were doing. So I'd say Brené Brown's Dare to Lead, supported with these accountability mechanisms that we have made sure exist here. And then I would say Adam Grant's book, Think Again, which really encourages us to think like a scientist. It encourages us to challenge our thinking. In fact, the reason that we have a family challenge network and a student challenge network is because of Adam Grant's book. And then I'm actually reading right now an incredible book called Unreasonable Hospitality. And while it focuses on the hospitality industry, there are multiple nuggets of goodness that I think should be in every organization. I think that VAIL is here to make sure that we elevate the high school experience, and we do that through hospitality. But actually, that hospitality is in the intentional decisions that we make every day, how we greet a student, how we infuse the topics in our scrum teams, the design sprints that we have. Everything we do is with our customer in mind. And we also need to make sure we take care of our staff as well, by taking care of their hearts and acknowledging that sometimes life is tough and how can we look after them? And then also providing what they need in terms of professional development. All of that to me is hospitality in the education system, because we're offering people, our stakeholders, our customers, our guests, exactly what they need. And we are surprising them by going above and beyond. And every day when someone feels seen and heard and valued, they will come back to the table.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my goodness. I love this. I could talk to you all day.
Too. Thank you for just giving me this opportunity to share something that I'm so passionate about. And I wish that you could meet our whole team, because I am today just a spokesperson, but this does not happen just with one person. This is 3 or 4 years, in fact, like a career for all of our staff here. Years and years and years of intentional desire to do something different, but we're all passionate. Leanne has been an incredible mentor. She's so inspiring. Our team of facilitators are inspiring. Our families and parents are inspiring our students. Dominique, if you get an opportunity to come and meet our students, oh my gosh, they will literally blow your mind. They are exceptional humans.
I absolutely believe it. And trust me, if there is any way I can get to you all, I would love to do that. So before I let you go, I want to do this fast round. I do it with everyone. So it's just 2 quick questions. So not a lot of time to sit and think about it. What is your favorite sound in the world?
My children laughing.
I love it. That's a favorite. I feel like that's a favorite.
When we're like tickling them or we're having like a wonderful time together, their little giggles are just so infectious and I just love them.
That's a good one. I feel like you can't go wrong with the laughing, right? If you could remove any barrier in the world for students, what would it be?
The barrier that I would remove for children is access to top quality, thoughtful, inspiring learning environments. I would remove any financial considerations. I would remove distance considerations. I would remove anything that inhibits them getting to a school environment. It doesn't even have to be a school, a learning environment every day that sees them, honors them, and inspires them. Because everyone, as far as I'm concerned, deserves a great education.
Agreed. I love it. Well, thank you so much, Katie. I appreciate you for joining us. It was so good.
Thank you so much.
That's all for today's Active Listener. Thanks for tuning in. Share your comments on this episode on our Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn social media pages. You can visit our website at lightspeed-tech.com to learn more about our mission to ensure every student hears every word. And subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen to your favorite podcast. Until next time, let your listening be as active as your learning.